I remember you got a big role and your car had broken down and you needed a ride to your acting coach. I think your Prius was in the shop and I picked you up and I was driving you to work on some material with your coach. And I've known you your whole life, my whole life except for a couple of years, and I figured we had like an open relationship where we could tell each other everything. And I asked you, "Oh, what role are you? What project are you doing? What are you going? I mean, this must be important. You're working with a coach before you go down there." And you got really quiet and
Uh-huh.
you looked out the window and kind of forlornly said, I can't talk about it." And I was like, what is, I was like, what? And we actually got in a real argument in the car. And you're
Yeah.
like, I can't discuss the project. I think it's because you had been scared so straight by all these legal confidentiality agreements that you had to sign.
Yeah.
But I don't give a shit about that because you're my brother. And I wanted to ask what you were doing. So then you said, well, we started playing this sick game where I was like, is it like a Marvel movie? Because is that why? And you were like, I just wanted to strangle you. Even telling the story infuriates me. You were like, no, but it is part of like a franchise that's. And I was like, what is it? Is it a superhero thing? You're like, no, not really, but it is. And
You
what is it?
you really you were convinced that it was some sort of superhero situation because it's like playing 20 questions with my kids. It's like, does it live on land or water? I'm like, it lives on land. And then my daughter will be like, does it have gills? And I'll be like, no, I just said it lives on land. Hayes was like, is it Marvel? I'm like, it's not Marvel. He's like, can you fly? I'm like, no, I cannot fly. Um, is it based off a pre-existing IP that at one point was in a comic book? I'm like, no, Hayes, it's not Marvel. Okay, it lives on land. The guy lives on land. He doesn't have gills.
And it ended up being the El Camino, the Breaking Bad
Yeah,
movie based
yeah.
on the series, and no one knew at that time that they were going to do that.
Well, look. To be fair, number one, I'm a. As I'm getting older, I'm realizing I'm just like a pretty anxious human. I think we genetically get it. You don't seem to have gotten it as bad as I am. But so if someone says to me, "Hey, I'm going to tell you something, but you got to promise me you won't tell anyone," I prefer they not continue to speak. I prefer we just
Oh,
move on to
oh,
something
I know,
else.
I know, I know.
I don't like that. I don't want to be. But if they do, maybe I'm eating a sandwich and I can't say, "Please don't tell me" in the middle of a bite, and so they unload on me. I have this is basically sounds like a commercial for Tell Me Your Secrets, but it's not. But I just go lead trap. It's just not going to come back out of my mouth. And that way, if I ever catch wind of it some other way, I don't have to think like, oh fuck, did that person hear that from me? Because the only person I told was Hayes, but then maybe like Hayes colored it in a way where he thought he was still protecting it to somebody else, but then they did. I don't. That just gives me so much anxiety. That particular project was the first one that I ever did, and still to this day, the most. That secrecy around that thing was like so unbelievable that first of all, I got the role. I had never read the script. Vince Gilligan wrote a set of dummy sides. That was one of the best scenes I'd ever read. I kind of wish he would make that show or movie because it was just an amazing like 5-page scene. I went in and read that a bunch of times with casting, and then when I was allowed to read the script, I went over to his office, and you checked everything in at the desk, phone, keys, everything. You went in, they handed you a paper script, you read it, and then you left it down on the table and you left. So I knew kind of nothing about that project, and so that is why, to go back to, I called Jean-Louis. I was like, I'm just going to build this guy around an animal because I didn't really have a lot of given circumstances. And so I drove out to the desert. There's a wolf sanctuary out in the desert, and I spent this day with this wolf named Dakota. I wish I could remember because people should go out there because obviously they need all the support they can get. It's a wolf sanctuary. After like 5 hours with this wolf, I realized there's no way this character is a wolf. there's just too much. There's too much regalness to a wolf, too much wisdom. This guy was far more impulsive. So that I had to pivot off the wolf. But you got to spend time with the animal before you can figure that out, maybe.
Well, you had that impulse and you went down there, and I think you were maybe 40 or 50 pounds overweight, and you hadn't shaved in probably 5 years. And that was how you were going to approach the role. And then weren't you told to the character changed throughout the movie, and you had to shave and become,
it was horrible.
So you couldn't that was like your cape, your Superman cape.
It was really fucked up because we shot all this stuff with long hair and a beard, and then we finished that, and then Vince was like, he's like, all right, well, you're going to hair and makeup. We'll see you on the other side. And I went in, and he, I shaved my face. I wanted to keep some scruff or a mustache at least. See that? 22 minutes in, and folded it in there. But I really wanted to keep my mustache because I'd had a mustache at that point for about 6 years of my normal life. And they were like, no, Vince wants everything gone. So I shaved to the skin my whole face for the first time in maybe 6 or 7 years. And then they cut all my hair off. And I remember looking in the mirror and just freaking the fuck out. I first of all, my face is so fucking fat and gross looking. There's not a contour on my face. It's like a giant white balloon. And then I have this really short haircut. And I remember walking back, and then it was like, all right, let's go show everybody. And they were shooting something on stage, and I walking back, and I had this sheen because, as Hayes mentioned, I was I looked like a balloon that you could just pop with a pin. And I walked back onto set, and I remember him at the monitors turning around and just seeing 8 different thoughts register through his face. I've never spoken to him about this, but I just remember. And then finally what came out of his mouth was, wow, okay. Well, he's handsome. And then immediately looked and was nodding at the scripty, he's handsome. And the scripty going, sure.
Mustache Tales.